Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by Belly Up Sports and associated with Godzilla Media. My name is Ryan McCarthy, and to my right, there we go. I got it. I'm starting to get the hang of this.
You're getting it.
Is my co-host and yeah, my co-host. I don't have anything clever to introduce him this week. Dustin Henry. Dustin, how are we doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready to launch out the gate at 22 miles per hour, which is Kenneth Walker's the third top speed on that big rush in the Seahawks game. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a snag in the recording this week. I had a family emergency to tend to. Everything's good. Everything's fine. Everything is hunky dunky. But I'm excited to get recording because we got a lot to talk about tonight. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and remind you about our social channels on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. NoCredsREQ, Facebook.com/NoCredsREQ, and on YouTube. If you're watching on either Facebook or YouTube, give us a like. And if you're on Facebook, give us a follow. If you're on YouTube, also look for No Credentials Required. Subscribe. We're up to 97 subscribers. We're almost at the century mark.
Hey, here we go.
If you haven't subscribed,
can we get to the century mark before Halloween? Let's see.
I'm making it my mission. Hey, I might try to find some candy to give away too. So if we get to the century mark, you might get get in the drawing for getting some candy. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Also, give us a like if you're watching. And on the podcast side, if you're listening on the audio side, subscribe to the podcast. Spreaker is our home base, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, basically any platform that you can think of. You can subscribe to the podcast. Also, rate and review. 5 stars is the preferred number of stars to give. If you leave a review, I might even read it on the air. Also, feel free to comment in either our Facebook side or on YouTube side, because we love it when you give us an algorithmic engagement comment.
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts.
Oh yeah, I am turning off my cell phone, putting it on mute. But yeah, I love that. I've been waiting all week to hear that harp, so hear that chime. So I'm going to play it again. It's just a great chime.
One more time.
Yeah. So if you're watching out there, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, leave us a comment while you're watching. Engage with us. We got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to talk about mainly the NFL Week 7. We're going to wrap things up there. A lot of interesting things happened this week. And we're also going to do a little post-mortem on the New York Yankees, the very sad, didn't put up a fight New York Yankees. So
yeah.
But first, let's get into NFL Week 7. We're going to start with, this is a very interesting week in the NFL Week 7. This is typically when you start to see a separation between all the teams in the divisions. Who's the best teams in their division? which teams are going to be out of the running, which teams are in the running for a playoff spot or the division. And yeah, there's a lot going on this week, Dustin. So we gotta get into it.
Yeah, and just as a quick aside, it's funny that you mentioned that, because as I was watching the games, I was thinking to myself that no team, there are good teams, and we're starting to see who they are. But normally by now, there are teams that are far and away better than most teams, and I'm not really getting a sense. There are some teams that are performing well, but I'm not getting like this, like the year the Colts were 13-3, you knew they were ahead of everybody, certain things like that. There doesn't seem to be any team that's really jumping out. There's a few teams that are doing very well, and you're just kind of like, well, maybe they could do it, maybe they could do it, maybe, the Giants and Jets appear to be somewhat for real. It's a very interesting season to start.
And that actually is music to my ears when you said the New York Jets could be real, because but in the meantime, let's get into our typical weekly subjects, and we're going to start with our biggest upset. Dustin, I want to hear who you thought the biggest upset of week 7 was.
Well, for me, and this one, it's not so much that I thought the team that got upset was so good. I just think it was the most shocking upset of the week. And I have to go with what I assume. I haven't really watched much this week, but I assume most of the mainstream media is talking about it. It's got to be Tom Brady and the Buccaneers losing to the Carolina Panthers, a Carolina Panthers team that everybody said, oh, it's a fire sale in Carolina. They're not even trying. They traded away their best offensive player this week. Robbie Moore also was shipped out. There was a coaching change. Give props to Steve Wilkes. And I believe that they are only, with that victory, as bad as it's been in Carolina, they are only a game out of first place, which shows the state of the rest of that division. But the Carolina defense held Tampa Bay mostly in check during this game, and the offense looked somewhat competent. DJ Moore, he actually caught a touchdown, which is something we haven't seen in forever. And the running backs were serviceable enough. They're never going to replace Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, you can't. But, I mean, unbelievable performance by Steve Wilkes and the crew there. Everyone counted them out, and they came out. And I will comment, just as a quick point about Tampa Bay, they missed that wide open touchdown to Mike Evans to start the game.
Oh, that was brutal.
That drop, and that seemed to have deflated the team, right from the outset.
Yeah, that was a brutal game if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and you got to be thinking in this game, if you're a Buccaneers fan, if you're watching, how low have things sunk this year? Because this was the year you're kind of excited to see what was happening with the team. Tom Brady's back. You don't have to go to either Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask as your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
You retained most of the guys you had from the previous 2 years, but this Tampa Bay offense is it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah. It really is, and you have to start wondering. And Tom Bowles seems like a great guy. He's got a lot of coaching experience. Byron Leftwich, but the Carolina Panthers are actually an example of what a personnel change can do. And it's early to tell, but from what I understand, Bob McAdoo was handling a lot of the offensive play calling duties with Matt Rule gone. And dare I say, the offense looked somewhat competent. Now we'll have to see if this is just a byproduct of they were motivated, they caught fire, and Tampa Bay is just so down. But you have to wonder if maybe a shuffle would do some good. Maybe Todd Bowles takes over some play calling from Byron Leftwich, but something is definitely off there. And
yeah. Not all as well in Tampa Bay, but yeah, with the fact that the Panthers, with all the turmoil they've had, between all the turnover and quarterbacks, between Robbie Anderson having a temper tantrum on the sideline the week before.
Yes.
And his summarily being shipped out almost not even 24 hours later.
Yeah.
Kind of tells you what's going on in Carolina, but they had a lot of fight in them this past Sunday, and it was good to see. It was nice to see an upset. I believe, all those Carolina Panther fans wondering what could have been. I know, Dustin, you had them as one of your wild cards, and I hate to remind you of that, but I kind of have to. We're all about accountability and no credentials required.
Yeah. I will own up to my terrible picks, but hey, so far some of my football picks are not as bad as my baseball playoff picks. Yeesh.
And I will say this: in our GNO league, I've lost 5 in a row, but in the Godzilla Media Fantasy Football League, I'm still in first place with an undefeated record.
Oh,
so
wow.
Go Mustache Rides.
There you go.
That's my team name, the Mustache Rides. Yeah, and my biggest upset, Dustin and I went with your Seattle Seahawks over the San Diego Chargers. Yes, I said San Diego. I don't care.
That's
come
at
happen.
Me. Yeah,
come at me. But I had them. It's funny. Like, you think at the beginning of the season with the trade of Russell Wilson, and I'm gonna talk about him a little bit later in the show. How he's the part of my English, but he's the shit. Quite literally. But he at the beginning of the season, Seattle trades Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. They pick up a bunch of players and they get a bunch of picks back. You think, all right, this is a season where they're going to kind of reset things. You got Geno Smith at quarterback. You might have Drew Lock in there. But now all of a sudden, the Seahawks are not only surprising the entire league with this offense that they have, the running game. And I think that's what they've been missing the last couple of years is a run game. And you'll probably agree with me on this. Yes. They've been missing a run game, because after Marshawn Lynch left, there wasn't, with all due respect to Rashad Penny and all the other guys who have kind of come in at running back for Seattle. But I think Rashad Penny's injury was a blessing in disguise, because Kenneth Walker,
man,
goodness.
I will say he has the potential to run away, pun intended, with Rookie of the Year now that Breece Hall is down. Now, I'm sorry to bring that up, but Breece Hall was the other guy that you looked at and you said, wow, this guy could run away. But Kenneth Walker looks every bit the star that some people thought he could be. And I am thrilled about it. Now, of course, I was shocked that my Seahawks came out, because what has been kind of strange for the last 2 weeks, knock on wood, the Seahawks defense, which was absolutely woeful to start the season, they're still not great, but you're starting to see that maybe they're starting to put it together in the smallest of ways there. They have looked like a better unit. The two rookie tackles on the offensive line have done a great job protecting Geno Smith for the most part this season. And of course, Geno is playing absolutely out of his mind. And it's something I will address later in the show. I'll get into a little bit more, but I am thrilled with how things are going for my Seahawks.
Yeah. And you think this season they could have tanked because of the quarterback, two really great quarterbacks coming out of Ohio State and Alabama respectively, I presume in the NFL draft, if they decided to declare early. And Seattle's playing like Pete Carroll's got this team playing like they don't want to tank. And I think it's the X factor right there is Pete Carroll, because I think we were both at a consensus prior to the season that this may have been we may be seeing the end of Pete Carroll's time as a coach of the Seattle Seahawks. But after the success they've been having this year, I think he's far from done. I think he's re-energized. I think this team is rallying behind him, especially because he's such a player's coach.
He is, and I will be the first to admit that there are some players that it seemed like he is unfailingly optimistic, and he is unfailingly rah-rah, and he always says, we're going to compete, we're going to do these things. And I have to imagine that after a few years of that, you start to tune it out. But right now, he's got a lot of younger players on both sides of the ball. He's also got Geno buying in. Their draft class from this year, it's very early, but their draft class looks pretty good. Like I said, you got the rookie offensive tackles, Kenneth Walker, of course, and there's some younger guys on defense. Richard Sherman, love him or hate him, but he said one of the young cornerbacks looks like him, but faster out there. So, maybe the future's brighter in Seattle than we thought.
Yeah, and that defense is playing really tough too. They forced, I don't know how many, I can't remember how many turnovers they forced out of the Chargers on Sunday. I think it was about 2 or 3 turnovers.
Yeah, let's see if I have anything in my notes.
And you also have to figure another part of that offense is the ever reliable Tyler Lockett.
Oh yeah,
he's a mainstay in that offense, and he is such a reliable receiver. He's been there for so long. I think he has been there. He's his tenure was as long as Wilson's before he got traded.
I believe you are right about that. And he is, I would say, now I know there's more talented receivers in the NFL than Tyler Lockett. But as far as precise route running, I'd say he's one of the best out there at running just precise routes. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is next level at running routes, but Lockett can run routes with the best of them.
So I looked at the stats, and the Chargers had 2 turnovers. Justin Herbert threw an interception, and they forced a fumble out of Herbert as well. But they also sacked Herbert 3 times.
Yeah.
So
they finally got some pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. All right, before we move on to our next topic, we gotta go to the comments section real quick. We got quite a few people watching right now, and they're not people who have put this in the background for their pets while they're gone for the evening. So the comment section is brought to you by intheclutch.com. Really great t-shirts. I have a couple myself. I have my Zach Wilson Word to Your Moms, I Love to Drop Bombs t-shirt. It's currently in storage. I'll break it out hopefully next week when the Jets destroy the Patriots. That's going to happen. Happen.
You're calling your shot.
I'm calling my shot. But you can go to intheclutch.com, get yourself a nice selection of t-shirts. Also, that they are also MLBPA and MLSPA licensed t-shirts as well. Use promo code NOCREDS at checkout. You get 10% off your order, and you're also supporting the podcast by helping us buy a t-shirt. So buy a t-shirt.
Up your wardrobe.
Yeah, up your wardrobe selection. All right, we got Snowman, Brian Snow from Snowman in the Morning with Cole Johnson. You can actually watch me at 8:35 a.m. on Mondays for Coffee with McCarthy. That's my segment on Snowman in the Morning on Sunday. He says, hey. The Morgan Man Sports Podcast says, was so happy the Panthers won. Now the Falcons just have to win against the Panthers, and the Falcons will be number 1 in the NFC South. Yeah, who wants to win that division?
Yeah,
like the NFC South and the AFC South. Who wants to win that division? That's what's coming down to.
Who knows?
And Snowman chimes in again. The San Diego Superchargers. I don't know if you ever heard that song, Dustin, but that's a banger from the 70s.
It's a good one.
It's a banger. Guys from Godzilla Media saying Geno Smith, good now.
Man,
it's a great story. I gotta say that. I mean, remember when he was at the New York Jets, he was supposed to be like the guy who replaced Mark Sanchez. He happened to get in the lineup because of injury. He played pretty good, and he kept throwing all those interceptions. And things didn't work out in New York. But then he goes to the Chargers. He was back up for a while there. Then he goes to the Seattle Seahawks, and now he's balling.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, I keep waiting for Geno to turn into a pumpkin. Like I don't know how long this can last, but it is a great story. But some of the things that I've read, some of his quotes, he said that in some ways he thinks some people just gave up on him too early. He acknowledges that maybe he wasn't ready, but the years of being a backup, like it's clear that he prepared for this opportunity and he is making the most of it.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, I hate to see you use this comparison, but I think of him like Doug Flutie in a way, because if you remember, I know you might be a little bit too young about Doug, when in terms of Doug Flutie, but out of college, won the Heisman in 1983, I believe. He was a 1983 Heisman winner.
Yeah.
Went to the USFL, played a couple of years there, went to the NFL, signed with the Bears. Then they signed with, I believe, Washington.
I think you're right about that.
And he was considered a joke in the NFL. Goes to Canada for, I think, 8 seasons, wins a couple Grey Cups, wins a couple MOPs, comes back to the United States and made magic with the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
For I think 2 or 3 seasons with them. Went to San Diego, finished his career in New England. I have a similar. I think Geno Smith has a similar track in that he started out early, didn't have success, becomes a backup, and now he's a starting quarterback because of a trade, and he's having the best career of his life, but the best season of his career.
Oh yeah, by far. And I do remember. I think that's an apt comparison because I do remember Doug Flutie's kind of emergence with the Buffalo Bills, and I remember that it was like this ridiculous thing that they were. He was in a competition with Rob Johnson, and that and Flutie just kept defying the odds, and then his time in San Diego, his run, I think he was the quarterback just before
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees got there, and then I think Brees has spoken before that Flutie kind of mentored him a little bit as a rookie, and Flutie was just an amazing athlete. I remember for the Patriots, he was like kicking field goals or punting, or he was doing something.
He has been. I think he's the only player in the last 50 years who has kicked a drop goal for an extra point for 2 points.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I think that was his final play in the NFL. Yeah. Was that drop goal for a 2-point conversion. Jared from the one half of the Corner Booth podcast says Eagles out here robbing teams. Still, that is all. And I was going to get to that. Actually, Robert Quinn for a 4th, and Bears pay most of the 2022 salary. See, Joe Douglas would have said, "I'm going to offer you a 5th round pick, and you're going to like it." But he was learning but he also learned a bit from Howie Rosen. So he has that Jedi. He has that Jedi power like Howie Rosen does. But I think Joe Douglas is set with the defensive line. I think Robert Saleh is the same way, and our resident fantasy sports writer at bellyupsports.com, Kevin Wilson. Geno Smith is awesome. It's making me eat crow all season. And Kevin's a Seahawks fan.
Yeah. That's
the funny part about it.
I agree with you, Kevin. I felt the same way because I think if you remember the first episode, I confidently said that we would see Drew Lock in the game by week 5. Hey, Geno, I will be chanting your name.
All right. So we're going to move on to our biggest disappointments in week 7. And I think we're going to be on the same page here, Dustin. I have a feeling we're going to be on the same page with this. But the Green Bay Packers. Oh my God. What's going on in Green Bay? I wonder if they're starting to regret this extension they gave Aaron Rodgers. He was asking for a trade last year. He won, I believe he won league MVP, if I'm not mistaken. But this season, their leading receiver this week was Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Running back Aaron Jones. And I think they're beginning to regret A, signing Rodgers to that huge contract extension, and B, trading Devontae Adams, which I think is the reason why he got that huge that huge contract extension. What, $40 million for 40 million for 4 years or something like that? Yeah. 200 mil for 4 years, but
they went with the old adage of this is a quarterback-driven league, and you got to build around your quarterback. But you have to wonder how much of this was pressure, because I had forgotten about this offseason, but there were rumors that almost the entire reason, and I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that it was the only reason, but there were rumors that one of the reasons that the Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett was to hopefully lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver. So
it wouldn't have mattered a bit because
no.
Hackett's system is god awful. Even with a different quarterback in the lineup. I mean, as we saw on Sunday, if you watched that game between the Jets and the Broncos, Lord save you. Even with Trevor Siemian as a quarterback, it wasn't great.
No,
it wasn't well.
Yeah, that was Brett Rippon wasn't exactly out there ripping the ball down the field. You know what I mean?
Oh, Brett Rippon. Sorry, not Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian. I forgot Trevor Siemian plays for I think the Saints now, but I can't remember. But
well, that's but it is Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the Packers front office would ever say it, but they might be looking at that and go, "What did we just do?" And I do have to. Aaron Rodgers himself is my biggest disappointment of the week because I just don't like him taking these passive aggressive snipes at his wide receivers in the media, saying things like, "Oh, if people are dropping this much, maybe it's time to give other people playing time or get people in there. Maybe this loss is the best thing that can happen to us because nobody's going to give us a chance." All the things he was saying, it's just his. And a lot of people felt bad for Aaron Rodgers, I remember, because when he first was drafted, Brett Favre made it very clear that he was not going to take Aaron Rodgers under his wing. And now we have all these years later, instead of Aaron Rodgers talking to these wide receivers, and maybe he's done this, maybe he has, but instead of taking them aside and saying, "Hey, let's work on a few things on the practice field. Let's like try to get on the same page here. Let's go over the playbook." He's going to the media and he's taking snipes at these rookie wide receivers and these young guys. And
seriously,
it's just not the way you're supposed to do things.
No, you can't do that. Your best two receivers, yes, are rookies, but at the same time, you can't ostracize them because they're in their first year. You're a veteran quarterback. You've been in this league for a very long time. And you have to rely on your receivers because you're considered the number one of the top quarterbacks in this league. You're the elite. You're the cream of the crop, the cream rises, as the Macho Man says.
Yeah.
We used to say, God rest his soul. But you have to work with your receivers and you can't alienate them in the press. No. If you want them to get better, take them to the side. Go in the wide, sit with your wide receivers in the wide receivers room and just say, "Hey, this is what you do here. This is how I want you to run your route. This is how I want you to this is what I'm going to throw it to this side. I'm going to throw it to this shoulder on this pattern. Or if I'm out of the pocket, I need you to do this." Don't give them a bad rap in front of the media. Because that's just low-hanging fruit for anyone who is either independent creator or mainstream or beat writer to just grab onto and make that into content and take it out of context.
I just and it's also, to your earlier point, it just reeks of, well, I have my money, and I guess I'm going with some leaps here, and I know he's a competitive guy. To play in the NFL, you have to be, but like it just is, especially when everybody was saying, "Oh, well, Brett Favre gave him a raw deal because he didn't mentor him, and Aaron had to do things himself." Well, geez, the history is repeating itself,
Yeah,
with this.
Yeah, and if you're Jordan Love, I mean, you gotta be wondering when you're going to get your chance. I mean, I remember last week's game against the Jets. The game was so far out of hand that they put Jordan Love in.
Yeah.
For the last series of the game,
but I think you might have answered your own question though. I don't think the front office could do it after giving him that contract. I think they're stuck. If you bench him, what does that do? And then you can't try to shop them after doing that. I don't know. They put themselves in a position.
They did, and I don't feel bad at all. and if you're, especially if you're a Vikings fan, a Bears fan, or a Lions fan, you also don't feel bad for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Great. The Green Bay Packers, let's just put it this way. They have a good defense. I watched.
Yes, they do.
I was listening to the game last Sunday when they were playing the Jets, and they gave them a hard time during that first half. But that offense just at times seems very anemic.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you get in Rodgers' face a lot, he's going to get rattled. It's just the same as any elite pocket quarterback in the league. Tom Brady is also a guy who you can rattle him if you get in his face enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think this was just a very disappointing. They had the chance to get back on. The Packers had a chance to get back on the winning side.
Oh yeah.
In this game against what I think is an inferior opponent, but if you watched Red Zone, or if you were or if you watched the game in your locality that day, you saw a very inspiring performance, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, Green Bay was just a very disappointing team this past week. So we're gonna move on, get a little more positive. Okay, we're gonna
be we've started the show with some, we've had some sauce.
Yeah. And speaking of Sauce Gardner, AFC Defensive Player of the Week this week. So hey, all right.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we're gonna move on to the most entertaining game. Dustin, in your opinion, which game was the most entertaining this week?
Okay. First of all, I want to come out and say that this might be a little bit of usual suspects syndrome on my part. Ryan, have you ever seen the movie The Usual Suspects?
I actually have not.
Okay, well, I do recommend it. And I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil the movie for you or anyone else that may be watching.
I know about Kaiser Sose, and I also know about Stuck in the Middle with You. I know a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, there's a camp of people out there that believe that Usual Suspects is not a good movie. The only reason that people remember it is because of the ending. And so I'm going to say that my most entertaining game has a little bit of that going for it, but I was on the edge of my seat. My most entertaining game was the Jaguars versus the Giants. The way the two teams were kind of going back and forth a little bit. Jacksonville looked better than they had in previous weeks.
Wait, Dustin, we've made it. You know how I can tell we've made it?
How's that?
We've got a bot in the chat.
There we go.
This is the great moment in the show. We have made it because a spam bot is in the chat. Oh my goodness.
We're starting to get that YouTube, that YouTube fire. The bots are looking for
Mark
us.
This day, October 26, 2022. We have made it on YouTube. We're getting the bots.
Oh man. Welcome, bot.
Welcome, bot.
But to me, the Giants and Jaguars, while it wasn't like this barn burner of a game, it was just an entertaining game. And I found myself rooting for the Giants. The way the game ended, though, that's what I remember. It had shades of that Rams-Titans Super Bowl from, I think, 99, where the Titans, Kevin Dyson, he was reaching out, fell just short. Christian Kirk gets stopped on the 1 yard line to end the game. Once again, the Giants defense coming up big. Are the Giants an actual entertaining team to watch this season? I would say yes.
Yeah, they definitely are. And as someone who had a particular running back in the lineup in my fantasy football lineup this week, I will definitely say, but not only just offensively. I mean, I can't name a single receiver on that Giants team. I can name two guys. I can name two players on offense: Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And I gotta say, I'm so happy for Daniel Jones. Oh, because he's not. I don't think he's going to get. I think I mentioned this before a couple weeks ago, and it's worth mentioning a second time around. When Brian Daboll was hired by the Giants, and he said, "I cannot wait to work with Daniel Jones. There's a lot of positive things that we can build upon." He was laughed at.
Oh yeah,
absolutely
he was
panned. He was panned more than the New York Islanders fisherman jersey from back in the day. and I wish we could talk. I wish we were able to talk.
That was a colorful jersey.
That was a colorful jersey. And FYI, if you haven't seen it, and the new retro, the new reverse retro jerseys, it is the Gordon's fish. The fisherman is featured on this year's jersey, and I couldn't be, and I actually couldn't be happier. But anyway, getting back to the topic at hand. Yeah. So when Brian Daboll said, I can't wait to work with Daniel Jones, he got laughed at. He got absolutely reamed by the New York media, by basically every national media outlet. But now you're seeing the fruit of what Brian Daboll said. He says, I can't wait to work with him. But look what Daniel Jones has pretty much done. He was turnover prone the first 4 years of his career. He's kept it clean this year. He's relatively every game, no turnovers. The same thing with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, to be successful, has to commit no turnovers. What has he done? The first 4 games since he's been back from injury, no turnovers. So the Giants are controlling the clock. They're controlling the line of scrimmage on offense. They're not committing any turnovers. They're forcing turnovers on defense, which is a huge thing as well. And I other than Leonard Williams, I can't name a single person on that Giants defense. It's like maybe because I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
As a New York sports fan, that's on me. That's on me. And I know I got somebody in the chat saying, "Don't you mean New Jersey?" Shut up. It's Metro New York.
Yeah, it's a tired argument. That's a
tired argument. And by the way, F you to Fox Sports for bowing the knee to who's it from the Bills? Knox, when they said, the 3 New York teams are above 500 for the first time in forever, and Knox said, "Oh wait, which state are they from?" And then Fox Sports came out with another graphic saying, the only New York team. It's like, come on, guys, this is so tired.
Yeah, it is
a tired trope, and it's stupid, and I hate it. And we need to kill this. But the most entertaining game in my mind, as we mentioned in the last segment, I think the Commanders-Packers game was the most entertaining game in my mind, because a certain quarterback came back in the lineup because Carson Wentz is out for the next 4 weeks with finger surgery.
Yes.
Finger surgery. It's Taylor Heinicke season again.
Yes.
Again.
Yes. And
I'm so happy that it's back, because he had some magical plays during that game to basically keep the game in hand and win this game for the Commanders. And also, neener, spring football does work, because PJ Walker,
yes, the XFL
led the
star.
Panthers to being with an upset of the Buccaneers. Former XFL Houston Roughnecks Taylor Heinicke, also a former spring quarterback. So spring football works.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say, and I was originally going to bring this up in the Packers section of the show, because Washington's defense looked respectable. Now, it's been said for a couple of years now, oh, this Washington defense has talent. They're going to put it together one day. Now, do you think that it's just the Packers were so anemic, or has the Commanders defense started to build upon something?
I think the fact that Taylor Heinicke being in the lineup was a bit of a shot in the arm.
Yeah,
it was a shot in the arm for the Commanders, because I mean, I would say they play a little uninspired with Carson Wentz in the lineup. That's an understatement, because wherever Carson Wentz seems to go, the team plays a little bit uninspired, between Philadelphia and Indianapolis. And as much as I love Carson Wentz off the field, his on the field performance, and I guess in the locker room, I guess it's rumored that he's kind of a polarizing figure.
Yes, it's rumored that he can.
And by the way, Taylor Heineke, another XFL 2.0 quarterback with St. Louis Battlehawks. So again, spring football works. But I think I just think that this team is inspired with Heineke in the lineup. I think he was their quarterback all along. I know last year you had Ryan Fitzpatrick play his final season, and then the team just kind of fell apart after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Heineke was in and out of the lineup a
lot
last season too.
Yeah,
but you got to remember, Taylor Heineke was the quarterback who led this team to an NFC East title back in 2020. Even though they had an under 500 record, he still led them to a division title.
Yeah,
and a near upset of the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
And that's what I was going to say. They nearly upset the Bucs, very nearly, and it's clear. And another key thing is. Now, I had him on my fantasy team and dropped him before this game. I had done it a couple weeks ago, but Taylor Heineke has revived Terry McLaurin. He's actually he scored a touchdown. So you have to wonder, like you said, Taylor Heineke clearly provided a shot of inspiration, adrenaline, whatever you want to call it, and in some ways, he commanded the offense better, I think.
No pun intended. Ew.
Oh man, I'm full of them. Sometimes I don't even know.
Hey. All right, we're going to move on to the most notable performance. And Dustin, this is we talk about individual performances, but I'm going to have a team performance, an all-around team performance in this category. And I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys defense. I also want to give a shout out to I started doing Lyft driving as just a kind of a secondary job. I met a gentleman on Friday named Seven. He's from Texas. He hates the Cowboys, but he said he'd subscribe to the podcast. And if you're listening, Seven, shout out to you, buddy. Thanks for the sub.
Yeah,
we appreciate you. And again, tell your friends. We need, we're trying to build our listener base, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. But I gotta give props to the Dallas Cowboys defense. They absolutely decimated the Detroit Lions, who until 3 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, they were their highest scoring offense in football, and they forced the Lions into 5 sacks, 5 turnovers, and they only gave up 6 points.
Yeah,
this defensive line, I mean, the front seven of the Dallas Cowboys is one of the best in the league. I mean, yeah, you get your Micah Parsons, but you also got a good supporting staff who can complement Micah Parsons. It doesn't have to be just him disrupting the quarterbacks. They've got a good interior as well.
Yeah, they and I also put down the Dallas defense as my most notable performance. To me, and I know some Eagles fans are going to get mad at me here, but this Dallas defense, they look like they could shut anybody down, and everybody knows about Micah Parsons. They
did a serviceable job against them the week before in Philadelphia.
Yes,
almost wound up beating them.
They are just. So far, they are the reason that Dallas is where they are. So I'm going to kind of pivot, and we're going to stay in Dallas, but I'm going to kind of audible at the line because you already so eloquently explained why the Dallas defense deserves top nods for best performance of the week. Ryan, you already marked this day down on the calendar for a very special occasion of a bot joining us in the chat. But another reason I want you to mark this down, because I am going to compliment Mike McCarthy right now. I'm going to compliment him.
No relation. I'm New Jersey McCarthy. He's Pennsylvania McCarthy. Just want to give that delineation, that line right there. Just want to give it that line.
Now, you and I think both of us, we take some pot shots at Mike McCarthy every once in a while. And we both said that Jerry Jones was going to be infuriated with him, that all these things. Now, push all that aside. Mike McCarthy, congratulations to you, because you made what I thought was a very prescient and wonderful adjustment. It was clear to me in this game that Dak Prescott was rusty. He looked rusty. Previously to Dak's injury and while Cooper Rush was starting, Dallas had scored on every trip to the red zone in the first quarter, and they were playing a defense in Detroit that had allowed a touchdown to every trip of the red zone in the first quarter. Detroit's defense got their first stop in the red zone this season in the first quarter. Dak just didn't look, and it's to be expected. He's been out for a little while. So Mike McCarthy, it was clear to me, changed the offensive game plan to rely heavily on the running game and put his quarterback in a position to kind of knock the rust off and still come out of Dallas with the win, thanks in no small part to that amazing defense they have.
Yeah, they I gotta admit, I was hoping this would happen. They would keep this trend. When Cooper Rush was in the lineup, they stuck to the run game. They decided to go with the run game, give Rush the biggest chances to have some success, and they did that. Ton of credit to them. My biggest worry, if you're, sure, if you're a Cowboys fan, you probably echo the same thing. I mean, unless you're one of the irrational Cowboys fans who still says we got 5 rings. We got 4. Sorry, we got 4 rings. If you were kind of hoping they would stick with the same game plan, grind the ball, grind it out, have some set up Dak to have some success, and they did. They ran for 139 yards, and Dak Prescott had 207 yards and a touchdown. So they kept it a little bit vanilla, but sometimes you got to be vanilla in this league to have some success. You to use the run game, control the ball, control time of possession, and it looks like that's what they did. They had almost 150 yards of offense. They actually lost the possession battle with 28 minutes and 6 seconds of possession time, but they still wound up winning the game because they did the most, both offensively and defensively, where they had to get it done. So 5 turnovers, 5 sacks. Gotta hand it to the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to transition over to our hottest individual take of the week. And Dustin, I'm going to start with you. After this week, what was the hottest individual take that you have coming out of Week 7 in the NFL?
Well, and since I'm a Seahawks fan, this is going to come as no surprise, and it's way too early, and I acknowledge this. But prior to the Russell Wilson trade, there were rumblings that Pete Carroll, the NFL game had kind of passed him by. His offensive philosophy of run the ball, is passe, that they're not giving Russ the keys to the kingdom. And there was a narrative among Seahawks fans that if it came down to Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson, you should choose Russell Wilson. And I will admit, I thought that Russell Wilson was the kind of talent that you kind of have to acquiesce to, that you have to build around, that you have to do everything you can to hang on to him, because talent like this doesn't come along. And I have, aside from Pete Carroll deciding not to run the ball for that Super Bowl, I don't have a major problem with the way he coaches. Now, I do think sometimes that his reliance on the run in the past, I would say, why are we still running the ball? It's kind of like Arthur Smith of the Falcons. They were getting blown out and they were still running it like crazy. I don't know what's going down there, but it's too early. But were the Seahawks right about the Russell Wilson trade? Did they see something that everybody didn't really see? And are Pete Carroll and John Schneider looking like absolute football geniuses right now? And is Geno Smith succeeding because of the way Pete Carroll and the coaching staff are setting him up, and how much of Russ's success was tied to this? These are all questions that I have to ask now. And like I said, I acknowledge completely that it's way too early, but maybe the Seahawks were right all along when most everybody was slamming them for choosing Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson and sticking with their coach And I will be the first to raise my hand. I was among them when they got rid of Russell Wilson. I thought ultimately they would figure out a way to get a deal done. And hey, now I'm wondering if he dodged a bit of a bullet. So
yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I thought after this season, John Schneider and Pete Carroll were toast.
yeah,
I thought that Russell Wilson trade was a move they had to make because they didn't have a whole lot of draft. They didn't have a lot of draft capital.
No, and they've made their mistakes because that Jamal Adams trade has looked as bad as it could look.
Yeah, it looks terrible because they overpaid Jamal Adams and he is gone for the season after a quadricep tear, and I think week 2. And I kind of thought it was going to be a little bit gloom and doom this year, but again, we kind of addressed that in the biggest upset when we talked about Pete Carroll and I think especially John Schneider. It's the redemption season for them.
Yes,
especially for Schneider. So good on them I definitely think as of right now, they've definitely won this trade. Seeing how Russell Wilson is kind of stuck in a situation where he kind of forced his way out when he saw things were getting bad.
Yeah.
And now he's in a situation where things couldn't have been bad if he wanted them to be.
Yeah,
things are as bad as you didn't think they would. I thought they were going to be playoff I thought the Broncos were going to be playoff contenders.
Oh,
I thought
too.
all 4 of these teams in the AFC West were going to be playoff contenders. But right now, the Broncos are sitting in last place, looking up at 3 other teams, and Seattle's atop of the NFC West.
Yes,
which nobody expected.
No. I thought that they already have 4 wins for the season. I thought that might be their total.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable, and you just have to wonder. Everybody was saying, you got to let Russ do things. You can't just keep relying on the run. You can't just keep running the ball in a cloud of dust for 3 yards. You can't. Everybody was on Pete Carroll. And last year, we kind of excused the fact that Russ came back and didn't look great because of injury. But you have to wonder if the Seahawks front office had this one right, if they evaluated it, because they knew him better than anybody else. They drafted him, and he played there for 10 years. But early returns on that trade looks like they were right. Now, time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, my hottest individual take of the week is that Brandon Staley, coach of the San Diego Chargers, he should be on the hot seat after losing to the Seahawks. And I'm going to give you a stat line from that game, which is pretty unbelievable. Now, I wouldn't say unbelievable, but considering how far behind they got, they were down 24-14 at the half. They were down. It was 30. It was fait accompli after the last touchdown in the fourth quarter by the Seahawks. Even with Justin Herbert's injury, they're making him throw the ball a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't explain why. I mean, maybe it's because their offensive line has been kind of depleted. I know one of their best players is out for the year. They've also been facing some other injuries and other key spots now. Joey Bosa has been out. I think he's out for another couple of weeks with a groin injury. But even with, and Justin Herbert's been playing hurt too.
Yes.
He threw the ball 51 times against the Seahawks.
That's way out of whack.
That's unacceptable, because you've got a guy in the backfield. You got 3 guys splitting time in the backfield. Your primary running back, Austin Eckler, he's one of the best in the league. One of the best running backs in the league, and you're only going to have him run 9 times. He was also, it's funny enough, Austin Eckler was also the leading receiver that day with 12 receptions out of the backfield and a touchdown. He had 12 targets, 12 receptions. But you've got to run the ball more. I can't figure out why they want to have Justin Herbert, who is battling rib injury right now.
Yeah.
You're making him throw 51 times in a game?
No. And you weren't, and as much as I love my Seahawks, it wasn't like they were down 30 points. They were within. You could have run the ball a lot more. They were throwing it like they were down.
Yeah, they threw it.
Huge.
Yeah, and the week before on Monday night, they're playing a short week as it is already. He threw 57 times against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if they're just having a struggle trying to find the running game. It seems like they are, but you are totally you're completely misusing your offense.
Yeah.
Now here's a cool stat line, because 2 weeks before, Austin Eckler had 173 yards against the Browns. And he's only getting what, 30 something, 30, between 30 and 40 yards against the Broncos, which again is it's a tough defense to play against, but still,
Yes.
you can't throw 57 times in a football game and expect to win each and every single time. You have to utilize the run. You absolutely positively have to utilize the run. Otherwise, you're going to ruin your quarterback, who's again still fighting off a rib injury.
Yes.
And you're not going to be able to control the clock, because that's the primary reason. That in my mind is the biggest stat, is time of possession.
Yes.
What are you doing? How much time are you using? How much time do you have the football? And what are you doing with that football effectively enough to win a football game? And I think Brandon Staley is great. Some coordinators are great coordinators.
Yes.
They don't make great head coaches.
Yes, I think I brought up the example of Wade Phillips. To me, is a classic example of that. Kind of middling as a head coach, amazing defensive coordinator. He always
Todd Bowles, same way.
Yes.
Todd Bowles, yeah.
Yeah, and then the example I brought up earlier on the show, I think Bob McAdoo, disaster of a head coach in his short tenure, and he's
you mean Ben McAdoo
or Ben McAdoo? Yeah, sorry,
Ben McAdoo.
Sorry,
that's okay.
Yeah, and but yeah, I think you're 100% right. Maybe Staley is the latest in a line that just coordinator position fits them best.
Yeah,
it's where they can best utilize their skills, because not having a running back the caliber of Austin Eckler and not running the ball is like having a Corvette in the garage and you only take it out to drive to the grocery store. Like, come on.
Yeah. If you got it, show it off.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on from football. We're going to talk a little baseball. Before we do that, we're going to thank one of our partners at Godzilla Media. That's Johnstone Supply. Listen, up here in the Northeast, right now it's deceptively warm. It feels like summer, but guys, summer's over. Summer's over. And although we can't feel the heat in New York State, you still want to stay nice and toasty warm all winter long, because eventually the drop is coming. The drop is coming. We're going to have 30s overnights in the 30s. We're going to have highs only in 50s and 60s, but you need to keep your furnace nice and toasty warm for the winter. So if you need someone to install a new system, Johnstone Supply can help with installing a new furnace for the system for the year. They can also help out with closing down your AC as well. You've heard George on previous episodes of Getting There with Gaz, and you have a chance to learn his and Johnstone's story. Now stop in and find out about their great service and products. Give Kev, James, or Bert a call. They can help put you in a warmer place this autumn and this coming winter. Call Johnstone Supply and Troy at 518-272-5922, or you can visit them at the location at 2600 6th Ave in Troy, or you can go online at johnstonesupply.com. So again, Johnstone Supply in Troy, 518-272-5922. They've been sponsoring our baseball segments all summer long for Godzilla Media. So we're gonna jump right into that, and we're gonna talk about the New York Yankees. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say about this Yankees team. It's funny, on Game 5, I remember Game 5 of the DS, of the divisional series, jump up to the big lead. Stanton hits that huge home run. Judge hits the big home run to put them up. And the crowd is yelling, we want Houston, we want Houston. Well, they got Houston.
They did.
And Houston literally swept them out of the playoffs. And there's a lot of questions coming into next season. Particularly, they're keeping Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman, which is a bit of a bummer in my mind because I kind of wanted to see somebody else manage. Because I find Boone's managerial style very frustrating, Dustin. I don't know about you. With over-reliance and analytics and the launch angles and always looking for a fastball and you know exit velocity and all this, like, nerd, use what you got in the field. Like, does anybody have any feel in baseball anymore? Does any managers rely on field? I mean, the only one I can think of is Dusty Baker and Robbie Thompson, as we saw with the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, my goodness, Robbie Thompson, former Yankees base coach. I think it was the third base coach when Joe Girardi was manager. Girardi kept him around when he was hired by the Phillies. He was fired in May, and look what the Phillies are now. They're National League champions. They win the pennant. Now they're in the World Series, and they're facing let's face it,
a juggernaut
an Astros
Houston team.
Juggernaut buzzsaw. Yeah. But also respectively, the Phillies have been a juggernaut. I was going to say buzzsaw. They've been a buzzsaw as well.
They have, yes.
But going back to the Yankees, let's go back to the Yankees for a minute. How disappointing is this season if you're a Yankee fan?
Well, to me, I wouldn't say the season's a total failure, but the old adage is always when you're a Yankee fan, anything outside of the World Series is a complete and utter failure. Now, I wouldn't go that far. But I will say that this team, I remember thinking in July when the Yankees were just firing on all cylinders and everything was humming, and they had such a lead. And there was an insane stat. I was listening to the game on the radio. I think I was driving to my uncle Matt's for a 4th of July celebration. So it was early July. They were the first to hit, I can't remember the number of wins, but they were the first team in Major League Baseball to do it. And I remember just this little thing in the back of my head that said, "Are they peaking too early? When are the wheels going to come off?" And
that's when the injury started. Stanton going out. I think was it Carpenter goes out. They're two.
Rizzo
at that time, and Rizzo goes out. I think at that time, Carpenter was their best hitter.
Yes, he was really a revelation for Yankee Stadium. Matt Carpenter revived his career there. But to your point, I have never, for whatever reason, I also have never been the biggest fan of Aaron Boone. Even some of his post-game rants to defend his players or light up the team, light a fire, whatever he's trying to do, it always kind of seems manufactured to me. Like there's something about Aaron Boone. And I remember a lot of people, when they were calling for Joe Girardi to be fired as the manager of the New York Yankees, they would say, "Oh, he's always got that damn binder that he looks at because he's trying to come up with the scenarios and see what happened." Well, Boone does the same thing.
It's not football. It's not football. You don't.
Yeah, you need.
I understand the need for situational hitting, but that's based on feel. It's not based on analytics.
Yes, and for me, I always, it incenses me that for me it's pitching. Right now, if a pitcher even sniffs 100 pitches, they're pulling them regardless of how they're pitching. And it's just like you said, managing by feel is almost completely gone. Where I never thought I'd say this, but I yearn for the years of Bobby Cox, Joe Torre, some of these guys that would just manage based on feel. The classic thing everybody said,
Jim Leland.
Yeah, Jim Leland. Oh, of course, in Detroit, another guy that managed on feel. I remember when people were shocked. People were shocked that Boone was put in for that famous home run. And I think Joe Torre said something like, I had a feeling he was due. They're just sometimes you have to manage that way. And I do think Boone has a tendency to over rely on the analytics, everything like you said. I know it's the biggest trend right now. But man, and also Brian Cashman, he's been the Yankees GM for, it feels like forever. I don't think he's
over
done
over 25 years.
I don't think he's done a bad job, but for whatever reason, with the exception of 09, it can't seem to get the team. They can get the team far, but they can't get it over the hump.
No,
and I don't know what it is.
And you know what? It was very underwhelming. The trade deadline was very underwhelming. They get rid of they send Montgomery to St. Louis,
deal.
which was the Montas deal, sending Jordan Montgomery in for Harrison Bader, which turned out not to be a terrible trade when Bader actually emerged in the lineup. I mean, he hit 3 home runs in the playoffs, but it just took him a long time to get over his plantar fasciitis. And Jordan Montgomery was very successful in St. Louis, and I hated the fact that they didn't have another lefty arm to kind of be in the lineup with Nestor Cortez. And that Montas deal backfired on them big time because he wasn't even in the lineup during the playoffs.
No, and it was clear. It was clear that when they grabbed him, because Montas had an amazing start to the year in Oakland, but then it was very clear that obviously once he arrived at the Yankees, that the reason he had struggled the last couple starts in Oakland was he was hurt. And they brought him over, and it just didn't work out. And you have to wonder, is it time for a regime change? And I don't want to be knee jerk. I hate when people say, "Oh, the solution is to fire the manager, fire the GM, fire everybody." But the Yankees, the last few years, they've been a team that can make the playoffs, and they just can't get it done. But to get swept like this, I was not expecting it. I thought they would get at least one victory, and they had a couple games where they jumped out to a lead, and you thought, okay, maybe they're going to save a little face here, but it just, wow.
I knew the series was going to be over quickly when Boone yanked Tyone, and after the 5th inning of that game of game 1, he was actually pitching pretty decent. But Boone got scared. And as soon as Boone got scared and he pulled Tyone early and went to his bullpen, I think that's when Dusty Baker was licking his chops on the other side of the field. And he says, "Yep, we got him.
Yeah.
We got him.
Yeah.
We got him."
And I can't stress this enough. I will be rooting for the Phillies hard. Houston, no disrespect to the player, but there is a stain there. They are not a likable team to me. There's likable players on that team, but the trash can scandal still rings. But Dusty Baker has done an amazing job of kind of steadying that ship, writing that team's image, kind of steering it through the murky waters. And he was another manager that I think his last managerial stop was it Washington? I'm trying to remember where he was.
I think it was Washington.
And people were saying, "Oh, Dusty Baker, the game has passed him by. He's a relic. But when Houston hired him, I know there were probably some fans in Houston that go, "Oh, here we go, another retread." But he seems to have been the perfect pick to manage this team.
Yeah, because when he was with the Cubs, he was known for wearing out arms. I think he's learned his lesson with Mark. That's kind of why Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood's careers kind of went south, because he just kept going. He just kept leaving them in games for too long, and we saw it. We saw it in the 2003 during the NLCS in Game 6 when they had that disastrous ending with the whole Steve Bartman scandal. But it wasn't entirely on Steve Bartman. But here's my thing. I mean, I'm kind of I don't really care about the World Series this year, and only because I'm starting to get to hockey season. The Jets are starting to take off. No pun intended. But the Jets are doing great. The New Jersey Devils are doing great. I'm paying attention to them more, especially with my new podcast that's in play currently. And for me, it's weird. Like it's with Houston, you got the feel good story of Dusty Baker. You also got the feel good story of Trey Mancini.
Yeah, Trey Boom Boom Mancini.
Trey Boom Boom Mancini, who I believe in 2020, he had cancer and he came back, and the Orioles traded him to the Astros for their run. But also, I don't know if you knew this, but Jeremy Pena, the ALCS MVP, was a one-time Tri-City Valley Cat.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yep, from the Joe to the show. Another one of those Astros. Making it from the Joe to the show. But also with the Phillies, and I don't know if you knew this, and I hate to go into politics, and I don't want to make this a political podcast, but it's just really funny how things work out. Any Philadelphia team that wins the World Series, the economy seems to kind of collapse. 1929, Philadelphia Athletics win the World Series. Market crashes that year.
Yeah, we know what happened.
1980, Philadelphia Phillies win the World Series. We go into a recession. 2008, Philadelphia Phillies win the World Series. The housing market crashes. 2022.
Economy's
kind of dicey. So
yeah, things are a little rough. Things are. Oh boy,
the wallet's a little bit light right now.
Yeah, it's amazing some of those crazy trends in baseball. Like, wasn't it the Giants only won the World Series on like odd years or something? There's
even
something
years.
or even years. Yeah, it's just
2010, 2012, and 2014.
Yeah, but that's that Phillies one is something I never.
That's a new one for you.
Yeah.
But getting back to the Yankees, though, for me, it starts at the top. It starts with ownership. And for Hal Steinbrenner just doesn't seem to be. I kind of wish that the spirit of his father would enter his body. He would kick a few TVs after losing. He would fire a few men. He would fire a few guys or threaten to trade a few guys and just get the team fired up, because that's the one thing that George Steinbrenner did. He hated losing. Yes. Absolutely hated losing, took it personally, took it as personally as the fans did. And for all the stuff that he made Yankee fans go through in the 80s.
Yes.
And going to jail and then coming back as the owner.
Yeah. Hiring a PI to find dirt on Dave Winfield.
Yeah, which was probably the best thing that could have happened for the Yankees, because Gene Michael built that team up with great prospects like Jeter and Rivera, and Pettit, Posada, the core four, all those guys, and the forgotten fifth, which another alliteration, Bernie Williams, the forgotten fifth, as I call him. But I just feel like Hal Steinbrenner, he's not about winning. He's about the bottom line. He's about the television contract. He's about trying to get people through the gates, making them pay $12 for a beer.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he cares enough. And I want to see that. I know he believes in Boone. He believes in Cashman, but eventually you got to figure in the back of his mind that his patience is eventually going to run out, especially if they're spending millions of dollars on an analytics system that has had some success, but eventually it doesn't work.
Yeah. That is, a lot of criticism were levied against George Steinbrenner, but the one thing that you could always say is that he cared a lot, and it's nice when your owner does that. To make a little bit of a parallel, Mark Cuban, bit of a crazy guy, but you know that he wants the Mavs to win, and he's going to try to do what he can to get the Dallas Mavericks over the hump. People that play for him say that he's got some of the best facilities, some of the most comfortable, planes, and just to see him at the games going crazy. That's the kind of owner that you want, is one with passion. And I think, to your point, Hal could use channeling a bit of his father in this instance here.
Yeah. And the biggest question in my mind going into the offseason is whether or not the Yankees are going to be able to keep not only Aaron Judge, but also Anthony Rizzo. Because there's been a story going around that the San Francisco Giants are saying that they will not be outbid by anyone this offseason in order to obtain Aaron Judge. Now, Aaron Judge is a California guy.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't want to pay those taxes if you're an athlete of that stature. But it's going to be interesting to see if they'll keep either or both. They'll be able to keep both. I'm hoping that they can keep both because Anthony Rizzo has been a very good. He's not only good at bat and have that short left field, that short porch in left field at right field, at Yankee Stadium, but he's also very good defensively. And actually both players are very good defensively.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the bidding war for actually not only just Judge, but Rizzo in the offseason is going to be.
Yeah, I have to admit that when I first I was initially very confident that the Yankees were going to keep Judge, and then all these because it just felt like one of those things. Well, you have to pay him. You have to pay him. You have to keep him in New York. He is the face of your franchise moving forward. He is a talent. He is like a cornerstone. But the louder and louder that these Giants rumblings get, I am wondering if maybe Aaron Judge wants to return home. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we're going to go through two more quick stories of note in my mind. And we'll do this segment moving forward with no credentials required. A segment called Odds and Ends. And I got two stories real quick. One from the NFL, one from the NHL.
Ooh.
And the first one's from the NFL, talking about Russell Wilson, who just can't seem to keep himself out of the news. But I guess this is a snippet from an article. I'm not sure it was on Barstool or some other website. It was on the Pardon My Take Twitter page. But it has this quote from Russell Wilson. And I'll read it. It says, that quote, Wilson's life is a continuous battle against what he calls wasted seconds. The biggest culprits are eating, sleeping, and yes, using the facilities.
Oh.
And he goes on to say this. It's theoretically possible to design a diet and fitness routine so efficient that your body no longer creates waste, Wilson says as he downloads his number 2 app onto my phone. I might wear number 2 on my chest, but my goal is to reduce my need to BM down to once a week, and BM being bowel movement. Right now, I'm at a loading phase where I only allow myself to make on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's really improved my energy levels and sex drive. Plus, the internal waste provides more cushioning against the violent impacts I see on Sundays. Not sure if this will catch on, but hey, can't argue with the results.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that is real. He wears number 3 on his chest, first of all, but
that's number 1 and a number 2 at the same time, by the way.
Yeah. But man, if that is true, then that is absolutely mind-boggling. Aside from the fact that there are things coming out that Subway canceled the dangerous sandwich, there's just so much going on around Russell Wilson right now. One of which the things are his former teammates Richard Sherman and Marshawn Lynch are on a podcast. They're claiming that they can't get a hold of him directly. Marshawn Lynch says, I have to call your manager. I can't get a hold of you on the phone, which doesn't add up to me, especially if I went to war with you. Something is up, but I don't know if that's real. That is unbelievable.
I don't think it's real. I don't think it can't be real because the fact that it's becoming low-hanging fruit to just pile on to Russell Wilson because he portrays himself as being this like super positive guy. It's kind of cheesy, but at the same time, it's like unintentionally funny.
Yes,
His sandwich did get taken down from the Subway menu. So
yes,
the
yeah,
Danger Russ sandwich is no longer a fixture at
Subways.
Subway. Not that I would want to go there anyway because Subway.
I'll take him over Mr. Sub, but
Yeah.
not much else. Not much
So
else.
the other story is from the NHL, and I don't know if you knew this, Dustin, but Phil Kessel played in his 990th consecutive NHL match yesterday as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. And what's funny in that game is that he scored his 400th goal. So that's a hell of a night right there. You break a record and you set a landmark, a milestone in terms of goals. He's a very interesting character. And then there was an article on on ESPN by Greg Wyshynski. And this is one of the quotes from the article. I just found it on a Twitter account called Animals of Hockey, and talked about different stories from different players who have interacted with him in his career, whether he was in Boston or Pittsburgh or Toronto or Arizona and now Vegas.
Yeah.
So this is one story. And it doesn't say who it's quoting, but it says the second story was at a BioSteel camp, which I presume is a hockey camp sponsored by BioSteel. It says one player came out of the gym swearing and annoyed. Kessel was reading a magazine while everyone else sweated away. And this player, who prefers to remain anonymous, asked if Kessel was going to bother joining everyone. Kessel replied, "Want to see what I can do?" He proceeded to destroy everyone else in the leg press and went back to the magazine.
Oh, man.
And there's another story another player was telling. I think I heard this on. I was watching Rod Peterson this afternoon, the Roger Peterson show, and they were talking about Phil Kessel, and they said he doesn't drink water. He's notorious for having a pregame meal of hot dogs and Cokes.
Oh, man.
But hey, 990
it's
games.
Working.
It's working. I mean, and I guess he's like one of the strongest guys in the locker room. Like he doesn't really work out like that story said, but it's
hats off to him. To him. And you gotta love like athletes like that. Like that to me is shades of MMA fighter Big Country Roy Nelson. That guy, like he would win these fights and they'd be like, "Yo, let me get a Whopper or something." And then Chad Johnson, notoriously when he was playing back with Carson Palmer on the Bengals, he had like 4.2 speed or whatever. And I remember they were on a game show on like ESPN. It was basically like, how well do you know your teammate? Like the Newlywed Game. And he and Carson Palmer crushed. And without flinching, they're like, what fuels Chad Johnson's 4.2 speed? Carson Palmer said, McDonald's French fries and Coke. Go ask him. He'll tell you. And it just, some guys have it like that. And clearly Phil Kessel has it like that. And he's been around forever. It's unbelievable. And to do it the way he's doing it and play that many consecutive games, unbelievable.
So I'm keeping reading this article, and I asked James Van Riemsdyk from I think he now plays in Tampa, but he talked about how he was messing with him while he was in Toronto, and Kessel was traded to Pittsburgh. He says, my favorite Phil Kessel story is when he was playing in Pittsburgh. It was the first game after he was traded from Toronto. My line's lining up against him on the opening draw. So just to F with him just a little bit, I chop him on top of his laces. Not too hard, maybe 50%. And he looks over at me, doesn't smile, and he says, "James, don't forget who made you a player in this league."
Oh, man.
And I guess like these stories are just like, he's a very dry guy. Like he's very quiet, very unassuming, but A, he cares a lot, and B, he's super funny.
Yeah, I guess so. Man. Hats off to Phil Kessel.
Hats off to Phil Kessels. We're gonna I'm actually make myself a hot dog after this, but anyway. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Dustin, every week we've been talking about your fundraiser for Extra Life. Why don't you go ahead and tell the folks on the interwebs or on a podcast side what you're going to be doing and how are you doing in the fundraiser so far?
Oh, well, today we just passed a milestone. I have raised $500 so far.
Woo!
So to those who have already donated, I thank you profusely. Thank you so much for your generosity. Uh, let's keep on going, keep the momentum going until my goal. We are getting close to game day. Official game day is Saturday, November 5th. I will be streaming for 24 straight hours, hopefully, or as long as possible, to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospital. I will specifically be raising money for the Albany Medical Center Bernard and Millie Duker Children's Hospital here in Albany. So come on by. I'll be streaming on Twitch at LDusto67. We're going to be getting started probably around 9 a.m. is when I usually like to start, maybe 9:30 on Saturday, November 5th. Hope to see you there. If you have some spare change, please donate.
Yeah. You get the link in there. I've got the link on the YouTube page as well. So, yeah, donate. We'd love to have this money raised for a very important cause, and I'm sure either childhood cancer or cancer of any kind has touched somebody's life.
Yes.
And whether it be immediate family or friends, and we're hoping we can get this eradicated. But if we can't, we want to help as many kids as possible be comforted and have their families comforted while they're undergoing treatment. And this is one way you can do that. So it's also, the donations are tax deductible, so you can write it off on next year's taxes, which is also pretty cool. But
yeah,
it's not only tax deductible, you're also helping kids, and who doesn't want to help kids?
Yeah.
Not Les Stroud from the LA Rams, but F them kids.
Yeah, but it goes to a great cause, and the money just goes for sick kids who need help here in the area. So please donate if you can. And Ryan, how's that new podcast you've been working on going?
Well, that's a great question, Dustin. We actually had to delay taping. I think we're going to skip taping this week. I had a family emergency. Everything's fine. I'm hoping my mom and my dad are watching right now.
Hey.
But
shout out if you are.
Shout out to Sherry and Don McCarthy. But last week's recording went pretty well. I'm starting to hopefully gain some support on Twitter, and because we only have right now the only social media we have for the podcast, which is called Have Another Donut. It's New Jersey Devils podcast. Episode 1 is out currently. It's we're still trying to get on other podcast mediums, but right now we got Spotify. Anchor is our home base for the podcast, but you can also listen on Spotify. I believe Google Play you can listen on, and I think we're up on Apple. So, but don't quote me. I'll check it out. But we're gonna start taping episodes again this Sunday. So look for a release on Monday. Talk about the last 2 weeks in Devils hockey. Doing pretty well. They've won 4 out of their last 5, and I'm excited for what's ahead. So we'll release it. I'll release episode 2 this coming Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So Have Another Donut. Check us out. Follow on Godzilla Media. That's where the video side of the podcast will be, but it'll also be on your preferred platforms. So we'll wrap things up here, but before we go, want to remind you about our social media channels: Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at NoCredsREQ. Facebook.com if you're watching, give us a like. Also follow us there at Facebook.com/NoCredsREQ if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We're at 97 subscribers. We're almost at the century mark, so I may have to entice some people with a giveaway. If we can get to 100 and you show proof you subscribed, you're subscribed. We'll see what I can do. So maybe we'll give it a little bit of incentive.
Maybe a little Halloween treat.
Maybe. You never know. On the podcast side, subscribe to the podcast. Spreaker is our home base for this podcast. We can also listen on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, whichever platform you prefer to listen on. Rate and review 5 stars. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. FF 5 stars is preferred. If you leave a review on any podcast platform that is reviewable. I might even read it on the air. So, in conclusion, as for Dustin, you can find him at ldusto67 on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. The Twitch channel is where he'll be streaming his 24 hours of video games. Next Saturday. You can find me personally right here on Twitter and Instagram at whoisRyanMCC. So, for my co-host Dustin, Henry, I'm Ryan McCarthy. Thank you for watching or listening to No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented by Belly Up Sports in association with Godzilla Media. We'll be back at our regular time, 7 o'clock on Tuesday, reviewing Week 8 of the NFL, and plus some other stories. You never know what's going to be around the corners this week. So thank you for listening or watching. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Good night, everyone.